I think the modeling industry is a very confused industry right now. I think I've been really lucky because the modeling industry personally for me has given me really hard skin, that I was really depressed. And this is why I've done so much work on self-love, because I hated myself. When you love yourself, it doesn't matter what anyone else says to you, because the only opinion you know that matters is yours. Happiness is a decision. Labeling yourself is a decision. Self-love is a decision. And if you feel beautiful, other people are going to think that you're beautiful too. What you tell yourself is true, because as long as you're living your truth, that's the only one that matters. So I think if you're a model, you can influence. And if you can influence, you can speak to people and you can spread a message.
So this is regarding the beautiful campaign by Michelle Wixit.
So I look at you. Yeah.
So basically it stands for, how mental health can impact individuals, and sometimes people get deviated or pretend to be something they're not. And Beautiful is a campaign that sort of strives to help individuals be true to themselves or be beautiful. So as the first question, what do you think in the modeling industry? How has mental health impacted you in the modeling industry?
So that's a really good question, because I've always said that with modeling, I think it makes you or it breaks you. I think with models, they are either the most insecure people I've ever met or people with very hard skin. I think I've been really lucky because the modeling industry personally for me has given me really hard skin. I am in an industry where I'm rejected every single day. I'm told I'm too big, I'm too small, my hair's too long, my hair's too short. I mean, I have heard everything. When I was 15 years old, I was told that I needed to starve myself to lose weight on my waist and my legs and my bust to be able to work in Tokyo. I've had people look at my comp card in front of me and throw it on the floor. I've had so many different things which could wreck my mental health. But I always kind of imagined I had this shield in front of me, like a Captain America shield. So anytime anyone said anything, it would bounce on the shield and it wouldn't hit me here. I also think that rejection is redirection onto something better. And I think at the end of the day, for me, it all came down to self-love. And I did a lot of work as a teenager on self-love and being able to uphold that. And when you love yourself, it doesn't matter what anyone else says to you, because the only opinion you know that matters is yours. And by taking on what someone else is saying, that's just you changing your opinion of yourself. And I developed a theory called the E-hat theory, whereas if you take the letter E from the end of the word hate and you put it at the beginning, it becomes E-hat. So essentially, when someone's handing you hate, they're handing you an E-hat with a label on it, and it's up to you whether to wear that hat or not. And the more you wear, the more it's going to weigh you down. But a mirror is just a piece of glass. What you see behind it's up to you. So for me, to answer that question, I've not really had any mental health problems because of the modeling industry, because I've always been sure of myself and I've always made sure that I love myself no matter what.
And what advice or tips would you give to those models out there who are actually suffering from mental health because of their jobs?
I would say to every single model, and I have said to so many models exactly what I just said about the fact that you define you. No one else knows you better than yourself. Rejection is redirection. Don't wear the E-hats that other people give you, and do the mirror exercise. People say beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but that can be rephrased to love or light or radiance is in the eye of the beholder, because they all mean the same thing. Beauty isn't something that you are, it's something that you feel and you radiate outwards. And if you feel beautiful, other people are going to think that you're beautiful too. When you're in the modeling industry, people look for the strangest things. People are so specific about what they're going for. It's never about you. If I was speaking to a model, I would say, there's a reason you're a model. You know that you're good looking, you know that you're stunning, you know that you are aesthetically pleasing to the eye, which is what someone means when they say, I think you're perfect. So if someone rejects you as a model, if you're in comparison to people as a model, the most important thing for you to feel is in comparison to yourself. How can I be a better version of who I was yesterday? How can I improve myself rather than comparing yourself to others? Because whenever I'm rejected as a model, I know that I'm not being rejected. I'm just not the look that that brand needs, and that's fine.
And what's something that you would say needs to change in the modeling industry?
I think the modeling industry is a very confused industry right now. I think it thought, okay, we're not including enough diversity, so let's include more diversity. Okay, now we're not including enough plus size, so let's include more plus size. Now we're not including enough people who have quirky things, so let's just make it all about plus size, diverse, quirky people. And I think something that's important in the modeling industry, yes, is to have relatability, but I think it's almost gone too far in the other direction. And I think that there needs to be a degree of relatability. What I mean by that is don't use a 14-year-old girl to model skincare for a middle-aged woman. Use a middle-aged woman to model skincare for a middle-aged woman. If someone's shopping at Brandy Melville, use a model that would be buying clothes like Brandy Melville. It goes for both things. So I would say, yeah, it's definitely important to include plus size and diversity and quirkiness in the modeling industry, but not to push it too far in the other direction as well.
And what's your take on mental health in general? Is that something you've been impacted with during your life?
So I'm actually very open about this, but when I first went into high school, I was really bullied, and it got so bad that I was really depressed. And this is why I've done so much work on self-love, because I hated myself. I wore all the e-cats. I couldn't look in the mirror because I was so insecure. I was, funnily enough, bullied a lot for my looks and my singing voice, which are literally my two professions now. So I find that very funny. But I completely hated myself so much that I wrote suicide letters. Um, I wrote letters to everyone in my family. Um, and I basically went halfway through that before I stopped. And then I survived and it was okay. My mental health was obviously very bad at that school because of that. Then I went to this Tony Robbins seminar that summer. Um, that was the year I started Tony Robbins. It was when I was about 13 years old. And it completely changed my life. And the one thing that changed everything was this speaker on stage. He said, "You define yourself." And it was in that moment I just made this realization that, oh my gosh, I do define myself. I don't have to listen to what anyone else says because the only person that can choose that is me. Happiness is a decision. Labeling yourself as a decision. Self-love is a decision. And it's almost about faking it till you make it. I thought, right, I'm going to try this thing where I tell myself I'm beautiful, where I tell myself I love myself, and see what happens to my confidence. Because it was almost like beforehand, I was this closed off person at that school. They made me so closed. You know, when someone sees something closed, they're going to try and open it, and they'll push it and push it to try and get it to open. So I went into this new school as a completely open person, and I was manifesting, and I said, everyone loves me here already, and I'm beautiful, and I'm popular, and I'm happy. And then it just never wasn't true. And I think it's genuinely about the way that you live your life and what you tell yourself is true. Because as long as you're living your truth, that's the only one that matters.
That was a great answer.
Thank you. Actually, I started a foundation um, around that year as well called Love Kids. So I used to run workshops for kids so I could teach them about the same stuff. And I asked.
Something that's still ongoing.
So what ended up happening with Love Kids is it became more just about me being the brand. So rather than it being, oh, I'm running a workshop with the Love Kids Foundation, now it's I just run workshops as Bella, so I'm continuing it, but I'm not really calling it Love Kids anymore. Love Kids is still there, so you know there's still a website and people can still reach out to me, and kids can still reach out if they need help and stuff. But actually, what I have now is a magazine. It's called Motivate Magazine. It's basically, it gives people a voice. So it gives a voice to people with inspirational stories. It gives a voice to CEOs and successful people and how they got to where they are that can inspire other people. And I have a section as well called Not Just a Pretty Face, which breaks the stereotypes of models being just a pretty face. And I basically get models from agencies who have inspirational stories, and we shoot them and then they tell their story. And, there was a girl who came from absolutely nothing in North Africa and ended up moving to the UK and getting a degree at LSE, and now she's a supermodel, and just these incredible stories. Um, so yeah, I have my magazine Motivate, which I started back when I was living in Florida. Um, and it was inspired by, I wanted to make a combination of Success magazine and Oprah magazine. So I sort of moved onto that after Love Kids. Yeah.
That's something that we're doing at our Elegance Initiative, that rather than having, well, there's modeling, but we'd rather have members or influencers because a model is a form of influencing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think, well, yeah, it's what I was thinking about earlier as well, is the fact that, yeah, in this industry, you are lucky enough to get a platform because, it's an industry where you're in the public eye. So I think if you're a model, you can influence, and if you can influence, you can speak to people and you can spread a message.
So the social cause of Mission Elixir is actually suicide prevention.
Okay.
And Mission Elixir started as a clothing run because due to war reasons around the world, an individual was impacted and we wanted to help that individual. So we started selling garments to help that individual repay a loan, which she took because of war-like situations. And from there on, it is what it became now, which is a coaching and wellness platform. So in regards to that, what do you think of suicide as a cause? What would you say to an individual who is at the brink of suicide?
Suicide is a long-term solution to a short-term problem. And as someone who nearly did it, I very much know that firsthand. Um, I actually wrote, I made a short film actually in 2020 about suicide called After Effect. The reason I made it is because I lost my lifelong closest male friend to suicide in 2020. Um, and it was very surprising to all of us. None of us knew that he wasn't even happy. He was actually a really, really happy guy. And we lost him like that. And I just thought, if only he knew the widespread effect that this had, and how many people care, and how many people have been impacted by this. And then it really got me thinking, people don't know, a lot of people commit suicide as a cry for help. And fortunately, a lot of people attempt suicide and it doesn't work out. And, you know, they're really, really happy that it didn't. And I think, imagine if they could almost projectively see how many people care. Because I feel like so many of them would want to. That's why some people attempt. But so many people could see exactly the impact that it would have. So that's why I made this short film, After Effect, because it's essentially a mockumentary about, a boy has taken his own life, and it's just interviews with everyone that knew him. So I've obviously got people like his girlfriend, his ex, his family, his best friends, but then I've got people who met him, for a couple of weeks on a gap year, for example, or someone that went to school with him when they were a kid. Because people really don't understand how many people care. And I think they really need to. And I think it's better to understand that obviously whilst you're here. Something else which I find really interesting about suicide is, and I learned this when I was at a Tony Robbins event, Tony Robbins said, right, everyone who is suicidal, I want you to stand up. And, X many people stood up. And then he said, right, how many of you have family? How many of you have people that love you? And then a bunch of them, most of them, put their hands up, and he said, "Great, so you're not going to do it because that would be the most selfish thing you could ever do. Sit down." And then every single one of them sat down except one person. And that was it. And I find that really interesting. And for me, that was the one thing that stopped me. I was there and I was about to do it. And then I just thought, I can't do this to my family. And I think when it comes to suicide prevention, such a huge part of it is making them have that sensory acuity and awareness and realizing how many people care about them. Because when you want to commit suicide, the most important thing in that moment is that you don't care about yourself anymore. So step one is realizing that there is care in the world. And I think that suicide prevention is obviously something that's so important. Yeah.
And what about those people who aren't able to express what they're feeling inside?
I think that's a really, really tricky one because obviously a lot of people that have mental health issues is because they've not looked for help. They're not able to express their feelings. And I'm one of those people that believes everyone should have therapy because people think, for some reason, again, there's a stigma attached to therapy. They think if you're in therapy, you've got problems. Problems, it's such like a subjective thing. Well, what define problem? What does that even mean? Having therapy to me is just being interested in self-help and personal development. The law of nature is that if you're not growing or dying, saying to I don't need therapy basically is like saying, well, I know what 1 + 1 is, so I don't need to know any more maths for my life to be easier. Having therapy is always going to make your life easier. And I think that's why it's important for there to be programs and things that are accessible for everyone. Because I think a big, big reason that people don't have therapy and don't get help and can't talk about their feelings is because it costs money to do that. So I think it will be, that's why, charities and being able to speak to someone and talk about your feelings is so important.
Yeah. Mission Elixir offers counseling as one of its services, and for those individuals who can't afford it, we provide free counseling. What do you think are the benefits of counseling? And have you ever taken counseling yourself before?
Yes, so I have my own counselor, and I speak to her every week. And what's awesome about having my own counselor is that I text her. Having a counselor rather than having, a friend to speak to is so different because they have a completely objective, non-biased perspective on what you're going through, and they're not talking to you as your friend. They're not giving you tough love. They're not playing devil's advocate. They're simply thinking about how can they help you reach the best outcome for you and what you're going through. And I think that's why counselors are such a magical thing to have, because it can really answer your problem in a way that no one else can. And they're there to be your counselor and only to be your counselor.
If there's something you'd like to tell the world as to, you know, release that heaviness you've ever felt, what would that be?
For me, every single time I'm going through anything, and, personally, I've been through a lot of stuff in my life as well. I mean, I've lost 2 parental figures in the past year, which is crazy for a year. But I always tell myself everything's gonna be okay in the end. And if it's not okay, it's not the end. Like, you grow through what you go through. Every amazing person I know, they're amazing because they've overcome adversity of some sort. And I hold on to that. I think everything happens for a reason. And I don't just say that willy-nilly, everything happens for a reason. I think everything happens for a reason because you can find a reason for it to have happened. And I think everything that happens in life is a learning experience. There are no coincidences in life, just learning opportunities. Everything happens for a reason. That's all I'm going to say. I think, if you're going through something difficult, you can just know that there are 2 different directions. You can either allow it to destroy you, or you can allow it to help you grow and make you a warrior.
And where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Where I see myself in 5 years' time, my answer to that would be, I guess, the same as the answer that I would give to, what's your goal in 5 years' time? What's your dream role or your biggest achievement that you want? What I always say to that kind of thing is, all I want in 5 years' time is to be fulfilled. The reason I say that is because I know that whenever we want to achieve a goal, it's not because we want to achieve that physical goal. It's not the goal we want. It's the feeling that comes with that goal. It's the feeling that comes with achieving that goal. So we're actually just striving for the feeling. I could say, I would love my own TV show. I would love to be cast in Marvel. I would love to play Elle Woods. Those are my dream roles. But actually, what I'm striving for is the fulfillment that will come with getting that. And the best thing about having that as my ultimate outcome is I can be achieving that every single day of my life. Because you can always choose to be fulfilled. It's about where focus goes, energy flows. It's always about what you're focused on and being grateful and attracting more of that into your life.
And what do you think about the stereotype that for a man to talk about mental health, that's weakness, for a woman to talk about mental health, that's weakness?
Mm. I think, honestly, from my perspective, people see talking about mental health as a weakness because they're projecting, because they don't want to talk about their own. That's why they put it down. Because people who are open about it, people that are into personal development, people that are seeking help, they would never put that down. Genuinely, to me, I think that anyone that sees it as a weakness, that's from their own insecurities. Mental health is something we all have. That's what people don't understand. It's like saying I don't have mental health, I don't focus on my mental health. That's like saying I don't have arms, I don't have legs. Well, everyone has it. Having mental health problems, we all experience it in day-to-day lives. Stress is a mental health problem. Obviously, then you've got things like depression, which is worse, eating disorders, which are worse. And again, I made another short film about this. It was called Unseen. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. I think that's a really important message, which I really wanted to spread. So I wrote a film where I reversed those things. So I have a bunch of people speaking to friends with physical illnesses in the same way that people speak to friends with mental illness. And so the film's meant to be really confusing. Well, why are they telling this guy with a broken leg to run? Why are they telling this girl with a vomiting bug to be eating birthday cake? And then you realize at the end of the film, she's actually anorexic, he's actually depressed. And then you see the switch and what it was actually symbolizing. And it says, just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. That's the main message here, with mental health. I think there are a lot of invisible illnesses that we need to be aware of.
What do you think of, someone like somebody who has ADHD? Then what would you say is some wrong perception that people understand of that individual? Or how does that person convey that if they're having some issue like that?
I think with ADHD, as someone that has ADHD, I see it very much as a superpower because to me, it gives me my special personality. I always say I'm like a golden retriever because of ADHD because I'll be speaking and then I'll be like squirrel. Something will distract me. I remind myself of the dog from Up. But yeah, I think that's a misconception about ADHD, that it means that, oh, they're impulsive, they're wild, they're loud, they're annoying, they can't concentrate. Actually, often not all of the symptoms apply to everyone that has ADHD because, like with every I don't like calling it a mental illness. I don't like taking on labels. With every label that anyone gets given, though, there is a spectrum. And it's the same with ADHD, and that's obviously a misconception. Everyone is different. It can be really extreme. People can have outbursts. People can be super impulsive, particularly in adulthood, or people can be pretty mild and black out during conversations, stuff like that. And I think for me, I like to tell people that I have it because I want people to have awareness of me having it, because sometimes if someone's speaking to me, unknowingly I'll black out for 30 seconds or so. And then I'm like, oh no, I don't know what they just said. and I want them to know it's not personal, and I've literally just blacked out because I have ADHD. Is one of that's one thing personally for me.
If somebody came to you and called you beautiful, what would be your first impression of that?
I'd say thank you for noticing. I think a problem is a lot of people get complimented and then they go, no, I'm not. No, I'm not. And then you go, yeah, you are. You are. And I think it's just okay to accept it.
And what if you heard that by somebody just walking down the street?
Oh, so that's different. If you hear that I had a joke with BB the other day about this, about if you responded to men the way that they actually wanted you to respond to them when they catcall you. There's a difference between someone calling you beautiful and meaning it, and someone saying it to you because they want to um, patronize you or diminish what you are and have power over you. There's a difference. Yeah.
What would you say is your area of, if you were to coach 1,000 people, what topic would you choose?
Self-love.
So,
Yeah, 100%. And it seems really simple, but at the end of the day, when it comes to self-love, it is something that a lot of people just don't have. I mean, I'm sitting here right now, I probably couldn't even count on one hand the amount of people I know that love themselves. And we've been speaking about mental health. When it comes to mental health issues, so many of them are rooted from the fact that people hate themselves, people are insecure, and it develops so many problems. The moment I learned to love myself, everything changed. I wouldn't be sitting here right now, let alone talking about the things that I've done or that I'm doing if I didn't learn to love myself. And there's also a very big difference between loving yourself and being arrogant, because actually being arrogant, you don't love yourself, it's projecting again. It's actually the fact that you're hiding that you're insecure. When you love yourself, you can be humble about it. It's just more how you hold yourself and something that you know something that you are. Yeah.
what are 7 tips you would give to somebody for self love?
Well, I've had this question so many times. How do you make someone love themselves? And I can't climb inside your body and make you love yourself. I can't climb inside your body and make you do anything. So rather than 7 tips, I teach people the mirror exercise. So I say this closed eyes exercise. I say, close your eyes, and I want you to think of something that you're really, really proud of. And I want you to think of another thing you're proud of. Who else is proud of you? What else makes you happy? What else are you grateful for? What else have you achieved? And then I let them really sit with that and really feel it. And then I say, open your eyes. And then I say, how do you feel? Notice how none of those questions were about how they look, all right? Now, that's something, it's the mirror exercise, it's a practicing exercise. And if you do it consistently and you do it every day, and mostly people actually do it when they're looking in the mirror, you do not have to learn to love yourself if you do that. You do not focus on the way that you look when you're doing that. You focus on who you are. And by doing that, you love yourself. So then gradually, because you're looking in the mirror, you'll start to see the beauty reflected back at you that you are describing in yourself.
It's necessary for people to, take antidepressants and all of that. And there is an actual natural cure to things like that.
So again, it's like very controversial for me to say this, but it is my opinion because of the facts that I've seen and the studies that I've seen. Um, Maybe I shouldn't say who it is, but I have a very close family member who has taken so many different medications for things like depression and other mental illnesses. And then they decided, I don't like who this is making me become. I think this is making me numb. I think this is making me a boring person. I think it's taking away my sparkle. In fact, I've heard lots of people who take these medications say it's taking away their sparkle. Who wants anyone to take away their sparkle? and they came off the medication. And there's one particular family member that came off it. They really struggled to come off it. That's not normal. That shouldn't happen. When it's a natural thing, that wouldn't happen. If I was taking turmeric every day and suddenly I stopped, nothing would happen, except I wouldn't be taking turmeric anymore. But when you come off things like antidepressants, you have withdrawal symptoms, that's a drug. That's really bad. And it doesn't serve you. You don't want to be taking something that, it stops you from being depressed by just making you numb. Wouldn't you rather feel? So when it comes to things like antidepressants, as someone with ADHD, I will never take medication. Someone with anxiety, former anxiety, I would never take medication. I would rather focus on neuroplasticity. So when it comes to mental illness, neuroplasticity is the biological reason as to why we have no excuses. We can literally rewire our brains with the behavior that we choose and the activities that we do. There are literal studies that have proven autistic kids and kids with ADHD have learned to function normally because of computer programs that rewire their brain to be able to function normally. And I don't like the word normal, but you know what I mean. Reducing the symptoms of that mental illness. Do that. Don't take medication that's going to mess with your brain, that's going to, cause maybe health issues later in life, that's going to take away your sparkle. And it is better to take things like stress calm from Ayurveda that's going to make you feel better. I mean, I never took any medication for anxiety, and then I started taking stress calm from Ayurveda, and it made me so calm, so happy. And there are weeks that I don't take it, and I'm fine. I don't get withdrawal symptoms. So that's my answer to that one.
And how was your experience with Ayurveda? If you are to describe it in a paragraph.
In a paragraph. I'm glad you asked me to describe Ayurveda in a paragraph, because the last time someone asked me to describe my experience, I spoke for 20 minutes. My experience with Ayurveda, in a nutshell, proved to me that by using what the earth has given us, we can treat anything. Everything that we need has already been given us as a remedy, just in the way that there are dock leaves for stinging nettles. That's what I would say about Ayurveda in summary.
And what do you think of EMF impacting mental health?
I think it's an interesting one with EMFs impacting mental health, because just technology in general. It's funny, my mum and I call my little sister's phone her lonely machine, because technology makes us really, really unhappy. I've never looked at Instagram for a second and felt happy. It's never made me feel good. And if anything, people use social media for validation. I mean, when it comes to EMFs, obviously they can cause a lot of health issues, but it's also about what comes with EMFs. When you're using technology, it gives you headaches, that gets you down, it makes you tired, it contributes to mental illness issues. And I feel best when a lot of my family and friends can't understand how I do this, but I often leave my phone at home if I'm going out. And I'm like, you know what? By doing that, it's better for my mental health. I can stay away from the drama. There was a TV show that I did recently in Greece where they took our phones and they made us live in the forest for a week and fend for ourselves. And we had no beds or food or anything. And all we had were each other and no phones. Yet I was probably happier in that 1 week than I was the week before, when I had everything, my phone or technology or food, friends, everything. And I found that very interesting.
So the way it's Earth in itself, it has like a natural frequency, but then there's man-made frequencies from various different devices. Now, it's been researched that the way such frequencies cause cancer is in an indirect way. where a person's hormones might get impacted, and that eventually leads to something like that.
Mm.
So, in terms of mental health being impacted, um, what are 5 to 6 tips you would give for an individual living in a city, a populated city, whereas it's very difficult to avoid such things at the moment?
Based on my own experience, I think it's important, you know, ground yourself in the mornings, literally put your feet on the ground. There are studies that show how good that is for you. When you go on a walk, leave your phone at home. When you're with someone, be present, don't go on your phone. When you can, write rather than use a laptop. Write rather than use a laptop. The last thing that I would say is stop having relationships and friendships with people over the phone and do it in person. Those are my 5 tips.
What about situations such as COVID, where everybody was just going digital?
Situations such as,
COVID.
oh, COVID. Now, COVID is an interesting one. I probably used my phone the least during COVID because I went outside, I painted, I did loads of painting. I thought I can finally do all of the things I couldn't do before because I didn't have time, because I was socializing, because I was on my phone, because I was doing all these things. I liked the fact that during COVID, you didn't have commitments anymore. You didn't have to commit to anyone. You only really had to commit to yourself and waking up in the morning and making sure that you weren't getting COVID. So I was going outside, I was walking my dogs, I was actually dancing a lot. And yeah, that was my experience of COVID. I would often go on really, really, really long walks because I couldn't drive. I couldn't get an Ubers, couldn't get on public transport. So yeah, that wasn't an excuse for me personally.
Is there anything else you'd like to tell anybody as part of the beautiful camping, as to from your outside?
I would say, and I say this all the time, you are your first and your last love. So make sure you have a good relationship with yourself because you don't want that one to get awkward. I would leave it with that.